tutorial series, we will be learning about the SAP Build Work Zone. We'll start off with an introduction in this video, followed by an in-depth look at all the functionalities of this application, what you can do with it, and how it's going to be done. As always, all our videos will be accompanied by hands-on demonstrations in the system. So let's get started. So let's start off with some basics. Now, most of us have probably already heard of the SAP Business Technology Platform or BTP. This is SAP's innovation platform that can be used for creating or deploying applications, setting up integration scenarios, or working with artificial intelligence, generating analytics, right? So, all kinds of innovative stuff can be done by using the BTP. And in order to be able to do these things, BTP offers what are called as services or applications. And you might have already used some of these applications. As ABAPers, we are probably familiar with the SAP Web IDE or its newer relative, the Business Application Studio. So one of the capabilities within SAP BTP is a portfolio suite of services called as SAP Build. Now, why is it called a portfolio suite? Because it is a collection of three services, right? That's why a suite of services. These are the SAP Build apps, SAP Build Process Automation, and SAP Build Work Zone. SAP Build apps allows you to build and extend existing applications. SAP Build Process Automation allows you to set up process flows to automate your business processes. And SAP Build Work Zone, this allows you to create a professional, modern looking website, a business site that hosts all your applications. All right. So it is the business site that is hosting all your applications. SAP Build Work Zone was previously known as the Launchpad service. Now, if you think about it, there are already tools available to do this, right? For example, if I wanted to create applications, I could very easily have used the already existing Business Application Studio. Or if we are talking about business sites, I could have used the Fiori Launchpad configuration to set up a role-based business site. We already have these services available. The question then arises, what is the real advantage that this portfolio SAP Build brings? Well, the big advantage with SAP Build is that it provides what is called as a low code, no code approach to doing all of these activities. This means that someone with very less technical skill, like our business users, they can go ahead and very quickly create an application just by dragging and dropping, for example, right? Or they can very quickly set up a business site and include applications that they want within that business site. So this helps to speed up the development and the deployment process very rapidly. So this is the real big advantage that SAP Build brings, is the low code no code approach to the development and deployment activities. And in this series of tutorial videos, our focus is going to be on the SAP Build Work Zone. Now, as we mentioned earlier, SAP Build Work Zone allows you to build what is called as a business site. Now, what is a business site? A business site is like a website, and it looks almost exactly like a Fiori Launchpad, and it provides a unified point of access to all your applications. For example, you may have some on-premise SAP solutions in your landscape, maybe an SAP S4 HANA system or an enterprise portal, for example. You may also have some apps hosted on cloud solutions, such as SAP S4 HANA Cloud. You may also be having some HTML5 based applications which are stored in the HTML5 application repository on SAP BTP. Or you may also have defined some Launchpad module based applications on your BTP. Now, all of these applications, which are in different solutions, can be brought and integrated into your business site. Even if you have not worked on all these different kinds of applications, that's okay. For now, just understand what the business site is allowing us to do. It allows us to integrate content from different sources into one business site, and it provides a single point of access to our business users. So the business users do not need to go to different applications to get their tasks done, right? So they have a single unified point of entry to all their activities. Now, even if access to the business site is going to be role based. Now, what does this mean? Users only see the apps that they are authorized to, and you, as a site administrator, can choose which user sees what. All right. That's why we say that the business site that is created by the Build Work Zone is role based. So now that we know that content from different sources can be incorporated into your business site, let's take a closer look at our sources. So we have the SAP Cloud Solutions and the SAP On-Prem Solutions. They provide content to your business site. And these two, the SAP Cloud Solutions and the On-Prem Solutions, are collectively called as remote content providers. On the other hand, we have the applications coming from the HTML5 application repository and the Launchpad modules. Both of these are in the BTP, and hence we call these providers as the BTP content providers. Okay, so broadly speaking, two types of content providers: remote content providers, which consists of SAP on-prem and cloud solutions, and BTP content providers, which is mostly the Launchpad modules and the HTML5 application repository. Now let's understand content type. So when I use the word content, it is not just applications that can be imported from a provider into the business site. There are other artifacts also that can be added. For example, you may have defined some roles in your on-premise SAP system. And of course, we don't want to redefine all those roles when you set up your business site. So the build work zone allows you to import already existing roles from your provider into the business site. So this makes our lives much easier. Taking this further, as part of, maybe you have set up a Fiori Launchpad configuration in your on-prem SAP system, and as part of that, you have some spaces and pages defined. The build work zone allows you to import already existing spaces and pages into your business site. You can also import groups and catalogs from your remote content providers, right? So these are all the different types of contents that you can import into your business site. Now this brings us to an important point: classification of content. Now this content which is coming in from one of these two providers, so either from a remote content provider or from a BTP content provider, is what we call as content provider based, since it's provided by a content provider. That's why we call it content provider based. Instead of importing, you can, however, decide to manually create this content within the build work zone itself. Now, what does this mean? Let's take an example of roles. I decide not to import a role from a provider. Instead, I will create it manually within the build work zone itself. All right. In the same way, I decide not to import spaces and pages from my SAP solution. Instead, I will create the spaces and pages within the build work zone itself. Right. So this category of content, which is manually directly created within the build work zone itself, is what we call as manually configured content. Okay. So two classifications of content: imported content, which comes in from your content providers, and manually configured content, that is the content which you directly create within the build work zone itself. Now let us look at some of the different application types that can be added into a business site. As developers, this is probably something that's going to be relevant for us. We can add in SAP GUI for HTML applications, SAP UI5 freestyle applications, WebInfra applications, Fiori applications, and HTML5 applications into a business site. So now we are going to see what are the prerequisite setup steps that need to be done in the BTP before we can actually start working with the SAP Build Work Zone. In order to understand those steps, we'll directly go to the BTP cockpit. We'll sign in using our credentials. So on the landing page of the BTP cockpit, you can see all the global accounts that exist under your credentials. So this brings us to the first step. We need to identify which global account we will be using. Now, for the purposes of this video, you could either use your trial account or your enterprise account. I'm going to be using my trial account, so I'll proceed to log in into the trial account. So once you have identified the global account that you're going to be using, the next thing would be to identify the sub account in which you're going to be activating the Build Work Zone service. So in my trial account, you can see here the sub accounts that exist. There's just one. So, and this is the sub account within which I'm going to be activating the Build Work Zone service. Let's go within the sub account. So this is the landing page of the sub account. And within the sub account, we want to try and activate the SAP Build Zone application. So the way to do that would be to first look for the service marketplace on the left hand side. Service marketplace is something that allows you to search for and activate any service. So within the service marketplace, let's put in the name of our service that we want to activate, which is SAP Build Work Zone. So select it, and on the right hand side you see service plans and application plans. We want to have the application in place, so we come under actions and say create. So now there's something to note here. SAP Build Work Zone comes in two flavors, a standard edition and an advanced edition. Now in the trial version we just have the standard edition, but for the purposes of this tutorial, the standard edition is good enough. So let's have the standard edition selected here and the plan as standard, and then click on create. This would create a subscription to the application SAP Build Work Zone. You can click on view subscription to see the status. Sometimes this step takes a while. As you can see, the status of this is still being processed. Let's close this here. So once the processing has been finished, you can see SAP Build Work Zone under the list of application subscriptions that exist for this particular sub account. This is what we just subscribed to right now. And of course, Business Application Studio was there from before. So this is what needs to be done to make the Build Work Zone application available within a sub account. The next important thing to think about is assigning a developer the relevant role that he needs so that he can go ahead and work with the Build Work Zone. So for that, let's go to the role collections. The roles are going to be assigned at a sub account level. So under role collections, let's search for Launchpad. And under that, you see there are three important things: Launchpad Admin, Launchpad Advanced Theming, and Launchpad External User. For now, make sure that all these three role collections are assigned to your user. So for that, let's click on the role collection, click on edit, and then go to users, and then under ID, put in your user ID. So this is the credentials that you're using to log into BTP, and then say save. All right, so this is for Launchpad Admin. Then for Launchpad Advanced Theming, let's assign our user to this role as well. And then finally, for the third role collection, which is the Launchpad External User, let's assign our user to this particular role as well. And in the future, if there are any other developers also who are planning to be working in the SAP Build Work Zone, You'll repeat the same procedure for them. So once the roles have been assigned, you are now ready to start working with the SAP Build Work Zone. So go to instances and subscriptions, and from there you have the application. If you can just click on the application, this will take you to the Build Work Zone application itself. All right, so this is the Build Work Zone. So these are the prerequisite steps that need to be done before you can start working with the SAP Build Work Zone. Let's just summarize. Step 1, identify your global account. Step 2, identify the sub account within the global account that you're going to be using. Important point to note here, you can use trial accounts as well. Step 3, in the service marketplace, search for the application SAP Build Work Zone and create an application subscription. Step 4, once the application subscription has been created, go to the role collections at the sub account level. Search for the role collections beginning with the name Launchpad and make sure your user ID is assigned to all these three role collections. This will make sure that you are now ready to work with the SAP Build Work Zone. So now we are going to take a closer look at the tools that are offered within the SAP Build Work Zone. The first tool that we are going to look at is called as the site directory. Now the site directory allows you to create a new business site by using this button here, the create site. And once your business site has been created, you can then manage the administrative settings related to that particular business site. So as an example, you see here, there are multiple business sites that have been created. And by clicking on this icon, the site settings, we can then view or edit the administrative settings related to this particular business site. For example, you have your session timeout site settings or the browser settings, etc. Now we will of course be taking a closer look at this process in a subsequent video. For now, it's just important to understand that site directory is two important functions: creating a business site and adjusting the settings related to that particular business site. The next important tool that we are going to look at is what is called as your channel manager. Now, a channel manager allows you to manage the different content providers that you have. So when we say channel, you can think of it as synonymous with a content provider, right? So a channel is a content provider. And here we have already configured a few content providers. And these content providers are the channels that are going to be giving us content for our business site. At the top right over here, you see you have a button new. And by using this new, we can add in a new content provider into the build work zone. The third thing that we are going to look at is what is called as the content manager. So earlier we were in the channel manager, now we are in the content manager. Content manager, as the name implies, is used to manage your content. It could be either imported content or manually created content. Okay, so within the content manager, you have the content explorer. So let's go to the content explorer to see what it does. Within the content explorer, you have the different channels coming in from the channel manager. Let's take any one of these channels. For example, let's take this one. And this is actually an SAP system. This is actually an on-premise SAP system. And you see this icon. If you place your mouse over it, you see it says role. So this means that these particular roles were imported from this content provider, right? And if I click on any one of these roles, it brings me here. It says apps assigned to role. So these are the different applications that have been assigned to this role. And of course, there are some spaces also assigned to this role. Now, what this means is that the role itself, the applications within the role, and the space, all of this was actually content that was created in this particular system, SAP system, and it was imported from there. All right. So that's how you must understand the content explorer. So just to summarize, three important tools within the SAP Build Work Zone. The site directory. This allows you to create and manage your business sites. The next one that we had seen was the channel manager. This allows you to set up new channels or content providers. And the third was the content manager. Content manager allows you to manage all the content. This could be either imported from your content providers or manually configured within the content manager itself. Now, the next important thing that we are going to touch upon in this introductory video is what is called as the layout of your business site. Now, whenever we design a business site, of course, we have to think about how the layout of the business site is going to look like. Now, here's an example of a business site that has already been created. And let's first understand a few of the important terminology that is going to be involved in the layout. The first is spaces. So these tabs that you see at the top, account receivables, billing, collection management, these are what are called as spaces. All right. And within a space, you can then have what is called as pages. So you have multiple pages within a particular space. As an example, you see the space credit management drop down has been opened, and within that we have the pages overview, analytics, processing, and background job. These are the pages within the space credit management. Now each page can then further be divided into sections. For example, here we see the page overview has been divided into sections master data and reports. All right, so these are sections within a page. And then within each section, that's where you have the actual application. All right. So if we talk in terms of hierarchy, you have apps in a section, section in a page, page in a space. And this is how the layout is then built. Now, taking this concept further, a space is assigned to a role, and a role is what is then eventually assigned to a user. So, if the user is assigned to a particular role, he sees all the spaces within that particular role. All right. Now, we will, of course, be looking at the topic of layout of a business site in more depth in one of the subsequent videos in this series. I just wanted to introduce the topic of layout in this introductory video. So now with this background information on how the SAP Build Work Zone operates, let us go ahead and create our first business site and add an application into it. This is going to be a hands-on demo in the system, so it's best if you build along with me. Okay, so let's get started. I am right now here in my BTP cockpit trial account. So this is the trial global account. Under that, this is the sub account. And within the sub account, I am here on my instances and subscriptions page. There I see I have an application subscription to the SAP Build Work Zone. And if I click on it, it will take me to the application. And the first place that we land in is the site directory. Now, as we mentioned, the site directory allows you to create a site. So let's go ahead and press on this button to create a site. We provide in the name of the site, click on create. So this would create the site, and after it is created, you can then go ahead and edit the administrative settings related to this particular site. Okay. For now, we don't need to adjust any of these settings. Just click on save and back. So this would set up your first business site. That's all there is to it. Now, of course, the site is going to be empty. We have not added any content in it. So that's the next step. We are going to add in an application into this particular business site. And let's see how that's to be done. Let's go to the content manager. Now, if you remember, we had talked about this earlier. There are two types of content primarily: content that comes in from a content provider, so it's imported from a content provider, or content that is manually configured locally, right? So for the purposes of this demonstration, I am going to use my second option, so manually configured content. And the way to do that is, if you see here in the content manager, you have this create button. If you just hover the mouse over it, it says the description of this: create a local content item, right? So it is content that exists only locally here within the build work zone. So let's open this up. And here you can see the different kinds of content that you can configure locally. And we are going to take this one, create app, because we want to create an application. So under system, we let it be no system. UI technology is going to be URL. And for the URL, we are here going to specify the URL of an application that is provided to us by the SAP UI5 SDK. And this is a test application. It's publicly available. You can simply take the URL of this. Let's quickly look at how this application looks. So this is how the app is. You have there's a product catalog, and then of course by selecting a product, you can add it into your shopping cart. So let's take the URL of this application, yeah, and include it over here in the URL field. Okay, so this is the configuration tab. The next thing is the navigation. Under semantic object, let's put in product and the action as order. And the next tab would be visualization. So here you have different settings. Visualization type, let's keep it as static type for now. You can select an icon. So let's search an icon from the drop down, doesn't matter what. You have your supported devices. Let's put in a title for your application. Let's call it product catalog application, and put in a description. So that's what we're going to specify. And of course, there are other settings under different tabs. But for now, this is what we are going to specify. Let's save this thing. So now if you go back to your content manager, you can see that there is a new line item in the list of contents. And that is an app with the title product catalog application and its description and so on. So if you remember the slide that we had seen earlier on the layout, we had said that an important component of a business site is a space. So let's go ahead and create a space for our business site. And since we are not importing anything, we are creating locally. So we say create a space, and we are going to give it a title, and we are going to save it. Okay. Now, if you go back to the content manager, you can see a new line item, a new content that has been created, which is a space. Thereafter, we had seen that within spaces, you have different pages. All right. So let's go ahead and create one page for our space. So we say create page and call it product and click on save. So once the page has been created, the next step would be to add sections within a page. So we say edit, and you can see over here empty page. This page does not contain any sections yet. So let's go ahead and add in a section, and let's give it a title, say general section. Okay. And the next step to we do is that we add the application within the section. If you remember the diagram, there's an application goes within the section. So we are now going to add in that over here. So we say add widget. And there are two options here, cards and tiles. We'll talk about cards later on. For now, let's go to tiles. And here you can see the applications that you have in your content manager, which you can incorporate. We have just one application in our content manager. So we'll select that and we'll say add. Okay. So this brings the application as a tile in this particular section called as general section, which is part of your product page. Okay, So I have now set up my page and my section and the app within that, but this page is not yet related to my space. Okay, so that's the next step. I am going to go to my space, and I am going to add the page product into this particular space by switching on this, by activating this assignment. So now my layout settings have been done, right? So I have a space, I have the page within the space, I have the section, and then I have the app within the particular section. So this structure is done. What's next? Next, I need to think about roles and authorizations. This means that the space that has been set up, which is called as product management, it is not yet assigned to a particular role. It means no one can see it. So therefore, we are now going to assign it to a particular role. And the role that I'm going to use is called as everyone. Now, the everyone is a special role. It is created by default within your build work zone. And every BTP user who's having access to the build work zone will be having access to the everyone role. So let's go ahead and assign the uh, product management space into this particular role. And the way to do that is, let's click on the role and then click on edit, go to spaces, and here you see the space that you have set up. The assignment status is red, which means it's not yet assigned to this role. So let's activate this and save it. The next thing to be done is to assign this particular application also to the role. So we say, just like we did for spaces, right? So let's come to the apps tab, and over here you see the app that you had created, and you click on activate and save. So this will make sure that the app is also assigned to this particular role. So once all the setup activities have been done, it's time to test our site out. Let's go back to the site directory. So you see this icon over here, go to site. This will take us to the business site so we can test it out. Let's click on it. So a few things to remember here. We had said that the role everyone is for all users, right? And under everyone, we had assigned the space product management, which is why you see product management here. And then under product management space, we had put in the page product. That's what you see here. And within product, we had put in the section called as a general section. That's what you see here. And there we had put in the tile that that refers to the app that we had set up, right? So if you click on that, it will take you to the URL that is behind in that was mentioned in the configuration. Okay, and then of course you can navigate back to the main page, right? So this is how you create a simple business site and incorporate a locally configured application within that business site. So that's all for now. I hope this first introductory video on the SAP Build Work Zone was useful to you. In case you have any questions or any doubts, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. In the subsequent videos, we will of course be taking an in-depth, detailed look at all the different topics within SAP Build Work Zone. So until then, take care, keep coding, and goodbye.